Hey guys, it's Tyler and welcome to another CGS live stream. Glad you could join me if you're watching live or in the future. Hello, future viewers. Nice to see you. Hope you're having a good day. So what are we doing in the stream this time? Well, we're going to be doing some environment-related concept art, so we'll change. Usually we're doing some character stuff here, but we're going to switch it up a little bit, do some environment stuff, because that's fun too, right? So let's dive in here to some warm-up sketches first. I'm just going to be exploring some of these reference images on the left here. Just kind of getting my gears turning before we dive into the main event. And I think that's always a good thing to do if you have a moment to warm up before you can dive into your main piece or whatever. I think that's always a really good practice to get into. Just warm up your hand muscles, all your digits all lubricated, and get your brain working. That's important. So let's do that, and we'll have some fun there, and then we'll switch over to doing the main events. All right, so let's see here, and these are all free to use images, so we don't have to worry about all those copyright issues. There's some sites out there, you can Google them up and find those if you're ever looking for free to use images. They're out there. Just gotta do a little bit of searching. So yeah, you can see you just have a collection of different kinds of castles and some stone ruins and things like that. Just fun shapes to draw, really. This is, again, just kind of a warm-up. Got a sheet of paper here. I'm gonna first, as all my students will know, I like to dirty it up a little bit here. I don't want this canvas to feel precious at all. Yeah, let's get some splatter in here. Yeah, there we go. I can dig it. And one of the things that I'll do when I'm drawing in a traditional sketchbook, like this one I have here is a Illo brand sketchbook, really nice brand if you're ever looking for a good sketchbook, is I'll do like a little marker underdrawing first with like a light gray or maybe a blue. And it gives me just a sense of silhouette and shape, an envelope to work within, and then I can go in with the line art on top. And we can simulate all that stuff here in digital as well. That's a little green. Let's go. Yeah, that looks nice. Okay, I'll zoom in here and just start having fun with this situation here. This is sort of like observational drawing. And this is not about accuracy. I should maybe make mention of that. This is just about warming up, exploring these shapes, observing some of these interesting ideas. Not that we're going to necessarily include castles in our Lovecrafted landscape, but yeah, these weird little pointy tower shapes might be interesting to play with. We'll see where it goes. We're just giving ourselves a rough starting point here. Some interesting walls at the base of this castle here. And then some trees in the foreground. I'll have this page scattered with a whole bunch of doodles. I don't know if I like that scaffolding. That feels, well, it breaks our immersion a little bit. Let's omit that. Okay, that's cool. I like that shape. And the other thing that's kind of neat about doing this rough process is you can design your page a bit as well. So you can try to have kind of a neat page going on. So now I'm checking out this crazy looking castle here. Wow. Maybe I'll make that spire even taller. Can easily become something like Dracula's castle, right? I want to get our hands all loosened up, so try to be free with these marks. And this is just an underdrawing, so you're all tense and stuff with this phase. Oh my goodness. Starting in the wrong spot, you know? Am I making a castle? We're at the moment drawing some castles, yeah. And we may have some castle-like shapes in our Lovecraft landscape, but right now we're just doing some warm-ups. You were really? That's too funny. It was good. It was good. Hope you had a good one as well. I like this collapsed pillar here. This is a cool, cool shape. Really nice, geometric quality to that. Something that the light can really catch in an obvious way. And it has a clear story, so that's a neat element there. It's good to look at the reference and just see, what is it about the reference that captures you? Like what's something worth remembering? And for me on this one, it's all of these rectangular doorways are really cool. And how dark they are too. That's kind of a mysterious quality to what might be inside there. I think the stairs are cool too. And I mean, I guess those are stairs, right? Yeah. Or maybe, yeah, there's stairs here, right? But then there's the structure of that is a little too crumbled to get a clear read on it, but imagine there's stairs in there somewhere. tower here, I like this center element here, this sort of split buttress aspect there is cool. And of course, the dramatically different granularity to the detail. This big mass for the main part here, and then of course the minute details at the top, really pretty crazy looking. This one here I liked because it had, I'm looking at the top one here, there's a very organic quality to this that I thought was really neat. I'll just be a little doodle off to the side there. It's a small little note, and then maybe we've got enough castles. Let's just throw in another little organic bit down here in the corner. Play around with the negative spaces. I really like those openings there. All right, so you can see we've got some fun shapes to work with here, and our page is reasonably well laid out. You know, it's just a sketch, right? So we don't have to, it's not a masterpiece or anything, but it has a sense of arrangement to it, which is nice. So now we're just going to go in here and go back to each piece and do some more detailed noodles on top here. You made a castle in 3D? That's awesome. No erasing, just drawing, right? Well, it'll be a little bit of a... The first underdrawing, you don't really want to be erasing much there. But yeah, this final pass, you do definitely do a little bit of cleanup here and there. As the emphasis is not on correcting mistakes, though, really. The cleanliness of this piece is not important at all. If an erase happens, it's not in an effort to make something necessarily look more polished, but to just create a readability to a shape, maybe, or change the proportions of something, but not in an effort to make it look clean. And yeah, Danny, we're just doodling for now. And then we'll move on to the piece after we've warmed up our brains here. Maybe there's another weird little house back there. After you spend some time drawing a particular subject, you'll hopefully get comfortable with the shape language, and then you can start to inject some of your own ideas in there. Hey, Penny. I did. Hope you had a good one as well. Yeah, we're gonna get to that. Right now we're just having some fun doodling, but just warming up here. But then, yeah, we're gonna ultimately get to some fun, creepy Lovecraftian environment stuff, which I think, well, I know you will appreciate that. I do as well. Hey, Sander. Welcome in, sir. Thanks. Okay, I got some interesting, like, chimney stack or something going on there. It's a little bit of an interesting position for that, but I guess this kind of slants here. And then this chimney comes out there. You know, what if we made it like kind of a more whimsical, I guess, stovepipe kind of element there. Maybe feels a little out of place, but whatever. We're making this one ours. When you're sketching stuff, you want to try and develop kind of like a shorthand for information, because we don't want to get in there and be drawing all these little bricks, right? That's craziness. So you want to have a way of implying details through the way your shapes look, and little hints of some of those bricks could just be a few dots. Consider the distance that we are from the subject matter here. trees back here. Kind of want something right here. Let's put a tiny little guy right there. Yeah. I'm a big fan of hatching things as a quick way to help show turns and form. Again, just kind of part of this shorthand language we have here in the sketch. Not as big a fan of cross-hatching, though, where we get into the level of detail where we're using buildup of opposing line directions. At that point, I'd rather just be painting with actual value. But that's just me. All right, well, let's move on to this guy here. Let's see, that was this one here, right? Yeah. This one, I think, had for me the kind of most kind of Dracula-esque vibe going on, the most gothic, or maybe even like a Lord of the Rings sort of situation going on. Having so much fun with these sketches here. Maybe I should have just called the stream sketching environments. Well, hopefully we'll get to the the main situation here. Yeah, we got a couple hours. We'll be fine. Some interesting shapes here that I like. Let's put some lines in to indicate complexity of the situation there. We don't need to get into too much detail. Man, these rocks have such a cool, like, geometric language to them. Really love that. Some weird little fencing here on the bottom. Some windows. If you keep this stuff loose too, it lets the eye fill in a bit of that information, right? If you get real technical about it and precise, then you just make your life infinitely more difficult and at not necessarily a greater impact. The tilt of that building is bizarre. You know, everything's like very straight, and then that thing is at a tilt. They're getting fancy with that one. On a complex composition, how do you pick a place to start? That's a good question. Do you mean like this sketch page here? Or are you talking about the piece we're going to do, the Lovecraft landscape? Because they're a bit different. Let's see, you've been reading a ton of Lovecraft short stories during the break. Cool, yeah, awesome. My next open session will be next Tuesday night. So basically when I was doing it before, this week there was a bit of a mix-up with the reminders in the Slack channel. One of them got deleted and I didn't see until too late, so we'll be back to the normal schedule next week, although I won't be doing the Friday sessions because I have a new class coming in that replaces that, but the Tuesday night sessions will still be on board for that. Let's see. Reminds you of Hogwarts? Yeah, for sure. Hogwarts definitely has a lot of Gothic castle elements going on. And you saw my Thanos. Thanks. I'm glad you liked it. That was a fun one. Yeah. Thanos, he's a cool character in the comic books. I don't really care for his cinematic interpretation, but I liked him in the comic books quite a bit, especially as a kid. And the whole Lady Death thing is a really cool aspect. He just feels more like a fantasy villain in the comic books. And then in the cinema, of course, they have to sort of modernize things, and everything feels more techy and polished. And so, yeah, I kind of like the more fantasy vibe that I got from him in the classic comic books. Just move that tower out a bit there. Kill that line there. Just kind of looking at the silhouette here and creating something cool silhouette wise. Maybe this comes out further over here. That's kind of neat. Little top to this guy. Cool. All right. Let's see. Let's do this guy in the upper right here. He's kind of work from the top down. And that was this one here. These cool, like organic, melty looking rock homes. squeeze my layer stack a bit here. Move this over. There we go. Screen real estate is precious. Consider that, guys, when you're working, is think about, do you have your interface optimized? You know, is it cluttered or distracting? Do you have the things that you use often nearby at hand's reach, at a moment's glance, moment's notice, whatever the phrase is? You know what I'm saying? Easily accessible to you. Because that can be a huge thing. Like, imagine if the thing that you're always clicking in Photoshop is, you know, right here, let's say, right? Versus having to go into a menu every time you want to access it. I mean, that's an extreme example, but if you click it 100 times during the course of one image and you save 2 seconds with every click, that really adds up, doesn't it? So one of the things that you're going to notice about professionals and veterans of an industry who are experts at their craft is you're going to see that they have a production flow that is very efficient, a well-oiled machine. So you have to ask yourself, how do you expect to have that level of quality if you are not being efficient like they are? And with a sketch, you don't have necessarily the opportunity to describe value change much. I mean, you could get in there and do that if you wanted to, but we're using mostly line here. So the hatching is one way to fix that. You can hatch to show planar transition, but also introduce maybe contour lines that may not necessarily be there in the source image. But, you know, having, for example, this line here and this line here helps us feel the sort of shape of this ledge here a bit more. And, you know, like I said, it might not be in the reference, but it helps clarify the structure of your drawing. God, that is a cool opening right there, isn't it? You can also use line weight as a way to indicate some of that depth there. I think I want to change this. Let's actually just make this one big slope. Sure, there can maybe be a little bit of contouring on it, but I think I just like it more. One slope here. Maybe there's a little crevasse in that area there. Okay, moving on here. Let's do this guy. Here in this case, the big blocks here, I think a distinct part of the character of this wall, so I want to spend some effort getting that blockiness to come through. You don't have to be super careful about it. Notice too the horizon line in this image. See how it's down here? So when we're drawing these shapes that are geometric, we can notice that we don't see the top of this cylinder, right? We don't see that because it's above the horizon line, right? So it's, you're to imagine like perspective grid. Boxes are facing that way above and facing this way below. Right, so good to be aware of the horizon line in an image because it'll help you understand the angling of the shapes, whether you can see the tops or bottoms of things. And when we set up our landscape, we're going to definitely have a horizon line in place. Lots of tiny little spiky bits on the top of this thing. Sometimes I'll glance back at a previous sketch and do a little tweak or two. Yeah, I think my viewer count thing is broken. It says nobody's watching. Is anybody still watching? You see 8 people? Oh, okay. Yeah, like I said, that's my thing. There's like, I have a chat window that has a viewer thing on the bottom, and it says 0 on it, so I thought maybe everybody disappeared on me. Which is fine, because I definitely good at just talking to myself sometimes. All the voices in my head, right? Also, hey Jordan. Good to see you, man. And my goodness, there is so much detail on this bottom area. Again, we're going to imply this just to get a sense of the sort of fractally blockiness going on here. We were doing a final piece, we would of course spend some time and try to make this read appropriately, but not for a sketch. I do want to get this weird collapsing roof thing back here. This is cool. Need some line weights to help separate these a bit. So anyway, there you go. Some just random doodles. Again, good to do this all the time. You know, have a sketchbook nearby. Pull up some inspirational images. Just have fun with it. Be loose. Explore the shapes. Don't be worried about accuracy. And if your mind drifts, if you are drawing this thing and you think about, well, wouldn't it be cool if there was like a little, like a food dog statue in the corner here or something? Then stick it in there. Have fun with it. That's the purpose of a sketchbook, right? It's your own sort of doodle diary. So yeah, definitely perfect place to kind of loosen up. So did some of that stuff. Now we can think about the main event here. We'll minimize this and just kind of save. Let's pop this up over to the side here. Maybe there'll be some shapes we can think about from that. Okay, first things first, we're gonna dirty this canvas up. Show the canvas who's the boss of this situation, right? You are in control. Splatters on there. Yeah, and who knows, you might even start to see something happen. Maybe you'll accidentally create a shape that interests you, but yeah, we're not gonna get into that quite yet. Because what I want to do is do some compositional exploration of ideas that we could maybe go with for this Lovecraft landscape. For that, I'm going to use... Whoops, that's definitely not right. Oh, actually, that is right. Oh, that was a cool effect, wasn't it? No, I just want the right aspect ratio to work with here, so we're going to take that. We're going to put a little... Whoops, I don't know why that's doing that. We got my... oh gosh, Photoshop sometimes freaks out. Okay, freak out over, we're good. Let's see, I was going to put a stroke on this box here, just a small one. And then we'll lower the fill, is it right? Fill. Cool. So we just give ourselves some little compositional frames here to work with. We may not need all of these, but we'll lay some out. And try not to be too limited by them. We don't want to let it dictate too much of our ideas. We just want to have a general sense of aspect ratio. But yeah, we're gonna be pretty free and open about this. So this document's a little bit small resolution-wise. Up this a bit here. Just be aware of your pixelation. You don't want things to look pixelated. It's not a good look. Okay, so elements that we may want to include. We can even write some down, right? We want, well, maybe we want things to be creepy, right? We want it to be probably epic feeling. Probably some maybe aquatic inspired elements. So I mean, that's a very Lovecraftian thing, although I think that it's maybe a little overused because everybody thinks of Cthulhu right away when they think of Lovecraft, and that's not the only thing, right? There's a lot more going on there than just Cthulhu beasts. So it can be an aspect, but I would say let's not have it necessarily be the dominant theme. Let's move my camera up here. I repositioned myself. So maybe we'll have some, I don't know, maybe there's like some eyeballs. Let's do some like anti-gravity stuff. Play with the laws of physics. Let's have some dangerous rock forms. Right, tentacles. I think tentacles would probably fall under aquatic, but we'll put it on here. Yep, tentacles, tentacles. Something galactic, right? So we can have a cosmic sort of quality going on. Even Egyptian would work. Okay, yeah, let's consider that as well. Maybe some Egyptian-inspired shapes. Perhaps things that feel like tombs. Obelisks, right? Those could all be things. So we've got this kind of good little list here. And we can do more than that too, but it gives us some ideas moving forward. Let's talk for a moment though about what are some important things to consider with an environment. So number one, we talked about already in the sketches about that horizon line. So we want to be aware of that. We want to think about where it is best to place that for this particular image, the field that we're going for. We want to think about the rule of thirds. So I guess I can probably draw some of this stuff out here. So rule of thirds is where you split your canvas into a grid like this. Doesn't have to be perfect, just roughly into these segments. And you want to be having focal points centered around these crosshairs here, generally. So that's, and why is that? Well, it's sort of through process of elimination, really. It's we don't want to create a double composition where we have two equal subjects, you know, here and here, because it creates viewer confusion, right? We don't have emphasis there. So these crosshairs we can see are weighted to either one side or the other, so that's helping with that issue. And then they're also not too close to the edges, so we don't call attention to the frame. We don't really want people to be paying attention to the shape of our canvas. We don't want things to feel coincidentally jammed into those corners. So you can see how through process of elimination we end up wanting things to be kind of in these areas here. So that's something to definitely consider. We want to make sure that there are clear depth planes in the image, so having a sense of foreground, midground, and background that are clearly separated. Those three planes are sort of the minimum amount of planes to get a good level of depth to an image. We'll, of course, shoot for more than that, but in an initial setup, this is a good place to start, those three those three major planes. And then lastly, we want to have a flow through the image so that the viewer isn't stuck in any particular spot. And I like to use something called the ping pong effect. That's my own term, which is to say that we have points of interest, POIs, are points of interest, in an arrangement in the image that has our eye moving back and forth through it. So if we had all of our POIs, let's say, here, here, and here, well, then our eye is stuck over here, right? But what if we had our point of interest here, and then here, and then here, right? Now our eye weaves through like this, potentially, right? We could get maybe stuck over here if this isn't loud enough, but we're thinking about a way to kind of weave the viewer through and find a visual path. It may be a literal path, but it could also just be a visually, implied path through the image. So those are some of the main things that I'm considering here with the image. And just tone, what's the tone? Is this a bright sunny day, or is this going to be dark and kind of spooky? And I think we know where we're headed in that direction. So figured I mentioned some of those things first. Those are going to be in my head while we're developing all this stuff. So you can turn this off for now. Those are, I guess those are, we can hide those. Yeah, that's fine. You can go back and rewind if you want to catch that again. All right, so let's see. Low horizon line I think is going to be good for this image. Tends to make things feel more grand. If we have a high horizon line, then we're sort of looking down at the image, right? Our ground plane is going to be more like this, and then things might feel small. Depends, but I think that this image wants to have a lower horizon line. Doesn't necessarily have to be that low, but I think here might be a decent spot. Here might be a decent spot. Something in that range. So focal point wise, I'm thinking something maybe that feels as though it's like I want the sky to be a major aspect of the image. I think I want us to have a sense of thick atmosphere in the image. Like maybe there's some kind of opening in the clouds that things are kind of coming out of and connecting with the ground here. And maybe there's some kind of implied path through the image. I like it maybe having a wasteland-like quality to it. If you guys are familiar with this artist named Beksinski, some of you will have heard me mention him before. He has a lot of these very sort of surrealistic, creepy, desolate landscapes, and find that that's potentially really effective for communicating this sort of Lovecraft vibe. So I might have him in the back of my head as I'm doing some of these ideas here. But playing with open chasms, I think, can also be interesting. Maybe this, instead of being a path, maybe it's actually an opening in the ground. And maybe that's where this, thinking there's definitely some organic stuff going on in the image. You guys were talking about tentacles, right? I think we gotta find an opportunity to have some of that going on. So maybe they're bursting out of the ground here. And in the distance, so we have this opportunity to indicate that they're massive, and maybe we get a sense of those kind of writhing at the bottom of this chasm here, and maybe there's a couple kind of creeping up in the foreground here. That could be neat, right? Maybe they're even kind of bursting out here. Maybe that's like a big element there. There's some interesting, like, spire-y type things. Floating elements. Maybe they have like creepy eyeballs in them. Almost like sentinels floating in the air. Could be interesting. Yes, Zdzisław Beksinski, exactly. A very, very difficult name to spell. But yeah, you got it. You got it. That's the guy. I wonder if maybe even you can imply that there's this massive tentacles coming up here in our focal point. Maybe we imply that that's happening a few places in the background as well. That could be kind of fun. I feel kind of like trees, but then you realize they're more like tentacles or something, and they're traveling up into the clouds above. I like the idea of indicating that there's this kind of low-hanging cloud cover that always feels very creepy and claustrophobic. So what are some of the major arcs we have in this composition? We have this kind of arc here going on. We have this sort of pillar-like aspect going on here. Want to get your eye, we don't want you to get lost over here, right? So we need to create some kind of flow back into the image this way. So maybe we'll create some kind of rocky terrain over here to kind of bring your eye back in. Okay, I think we're getting some ideas. This is our first composition, which may end up being our favorite composition, but let's continue to explore here. So we play with the idea of kind of creepy tomb, like a mausoleum kind of thing, but very, very abstract in the mid-ground here. Some stairs. And maybe there's holes in the ground. Instead of a big chasm, maybe there's these various holes, which is kind of creepy. If anybody has tryptophobia, they're definitely gonna maybe have an issue with this situation. And I like, again, I think the low cloud cover is going to be good. So we'll put that atmosphere back here still. Let's see, maybe there's some crazy like statues here. Like, weird Cthulhu-y looking statues, some tentacles at the bottom here. And I was liking this aspect of these kind of like gravestone things, but maybe in this image they're not gravestones. Maybe they're more like just weird pillars. Do you guys remember that news story where they found a pillar in the desert? It's like a weird like monolith in the middle of nowhere. I thought that was pretty cool. So maybe we'll have some of these funky like monoliths here. Let's see, these stairs. Let's see, I guess we're kind of creating a sense that there's some descent happening here. So maybe there is a chasm in this image still, but the chasm is actually, instead of just like a big pit with tentacles, maybe we're implying that you've climbed sort of up these stairs to get to this tomb here. And maybe the tomb, rather than having a big opening like this, maybe it's got some big crazy doors. Maybe the doors have like a crazy face on them. Some kind of squid-like face. And we may end up combining some of these thumbnails together. You know what's weird is there was this subtle like shape right here. You guys see that? That was totally by accident, but maybe there's some kind of weird halo happening in the background here. That could be weird. Maybe it's like a planet. We talked about this this cosmic aspect, so maybe there's some kind of setting sun quality back here, but maybe it doesn't have to be the sun, right? It could be just some weird alien planet sort of thing, maybe like a weird planet situation going on. That could be fun. Maybe we imply that there's other planets back here. Okay, there's definitely some cool stuff happening there. I like this weird negative shape that happened here. That's bizarre, but cool. You got to keep it loose, guys, because that'll allow you to have happy accidents, which will let you be a better artist than you actually are, right? You take people out, you tell them you planned it all. I'm almost getting like a Badlands quality from this too. So maybe there's like some lightning bolts striking from the sky down to this like a blasted sort of salt flats situation going on. That could be cool. Jordan asks, how do you choose the topic you're going to work on for the stream? That's a good question. Well, I think the first thing is I just consider what's the stuff I've already streamed or that I've streamed recently, and I try to have something that feels at least somewhat different, so it's not super repetitive. And then I'll choose something that I feel like I can demonstrate to a reasonable degree of quality. So I wouldn't get on here and tell people how to paint dinosaurs, because I don't paint dinosaurs very often, and I would be concerned that I would not do that well enough, or I'd at least practice that first before I attempted to do that on a stream. So that's definitely a factor too. It's just making sure that I can demonstrate something to a reasonable level of quality. And then I think third is just something that I find interesting. So there's definitely subject matters that are more exciting for me to work on, and as long as I can tie it into some sort of informational aspect for everyone watching, then I think that's kind of like a match made in heaven there. So those would be the three things that mainly factor into how I pick stuff for the stream here. Penny says, maybe like in Hellboy, we could have a tentacular object coming out of the sky. I wish I remembered that from the movie, but it sounds cool though. I guess we have a little bit of that here, where we have this tentacle rising up from the cavern into the clouds. But you were thinking like it's like just coming out of the sky. So let's play with that idea too. I think that's a cool thought. Let's mess with that here. So we'll drop in another comp here. And it's coming out of the sky. It would be nice to think about, is there something that it's coming down over? Is there some kind of element that it's a reason that it's kind of coming out of this area? So let's first imply some creature coming out of the sky here. Have some cool tentacle stuff going on. And maybe we end up seeing some details up in the very top corner there. But I think it might be cool to imply that there's something much larger that we're not seeing everything of. So we'll have it just kind of coming out like that. Yeah, okay. It's starting to sound familiar now. I have to rewatch it, but I remember liking it. I remember with the first Hellboy movie, I remember that the first like 20 minutes of it, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be the most amazing movie I've ever seen. And then by the end, I was like, that was good, but it was like not as good as the first 20 minutes were for me. Like with the beginning where it was like the dude with the crazy like electric gauntlet thing. And I was like, man, this is just hitting all kinds of correct notes with me. But you know, over the course of 2 hours, you have an opportunity to make all kinds of mistakes, right? The longer the movie, the more chances you have to just kind of, I don't want to say mess it up, but you know, there's more to work with and more decisions to make, and it becomes harder. It's kind of like when you do a piece that's just a doodle, like for example, we were doing these sketches here, and we didn't go too far with these, right? So it's very forgiving. We don't have to get in here and say like, well, the perspective on those top elements is all wrong. You know, it's rough, and it's clear that it's rough, and no one's going to be judging us on that stuff, or at least they shouldn't, right? But the more polished we get, the more detailed we get with an image, the more opportunities we have to screw things up. And so that's kind of like how I feel about movies, is that as you get further in, there's just more of a chance of a letdown. And I still like the movie a lot from what I remember, but I just remember the first part of the movie being like really, really, really solid. You're playing with these like obelisk shapes here. We did talk about Egyptian stuff. Maybe there's like a Stonehenge kind of thing happening. That could be interesting. Okay, maybe, yes, I'm just kind of brainstorming here in my head. Maybe we take this and maybe we make this on a hill. Like maybe the whole thing is kind of raised. And maybe we open this up and we imply there's some kind of altar or throne at the top of this, in the middle of this Stonehenge situation here. So now we've got this kind of like hilltop going on here, and maybe we play with some anti-gravity stuff. So maybe there's some platforms that are actually floating that let you get to this situation here. Maybe we'll let's have it come over to the right a bit first, and then we'll have it come towards us here, and we'll have a bigger platform here like this. And maybe there's a couple other little floating bits here and there. And let's see, playing around with ideas for the surrounding terrain here. The sky will be crazy. That low cloud cover again. That's one of the most consistent ideas we've had across all of these here. Should we number these? I'm always telling my students to number stuff. Let's lead by example here. You know, this throne makes me want it to be almost showing like a character, maybe like a Cthulhu-y or whatever Lovecraftian creature on this thing. Is it maybe just kind of doing its thing? Yeah, that could be interesting. Lorena says, I can become famous by buying followers and Prime viewers. Oh, it's very exciting. How many millions of dollars does it cost to do that? I like feeding the trolls a little bit. It makes me laugh. Have you guys ever had that on Instagram where you get like a post that's doing pretty well, and then you have somebody come in and they're like, hey, check out like my like diet pills, or check out my like fitness routine, or it's like whatever random nonsense. It's amazing. So yeah, this is more like intimate in terms of we're just kind of closer. It's not I mean, this creature still feels big, but I like that we might be seeing a character there. That's just turning from an environment concept into a character concept, right? Luckily, it's not something I'm uncomfortable with, so we could definitely go there if we want to. I mean, is this just one of those things where we want there to be like a standoff? Is this a standoff image? Like there's somebody approaching the platform ready to battle the Lord of the Throne here? Huh. I'm not going to get too crazy into the details of this character at the moment because we don't know what we're going to do yet, but let's just have some little indication here of somebody that might be ready to battle this person. Maybe they've got a spear, a trident of Lovecraft slaying. I don't know, we're just going crazy now. You get direct messages like that? Yeah. There's a lot of that stuff going around. Can you have characters in your environment concept and keep it an environment concept? Where's the line? Yeah, you totally can. It's about focal point, and in an environment concept, the characters typically are fairly simple, maybe silhouetted, or the details are, not that in depth. They're going to be a pretty low ratio overall in the image, or if they're a bigger ratio, like a character in the foreground, let's say it's like somebody looking off into the distance, they shouldn't have a lot of distracting detail on them, right? But yeah, this is having two characters in the scene. It doesn't turn into a character image, right? And we don't necessarily need to label things specifically. It's more just assessing, what's the goal of the task, right? So if the goal of the task was there's these two characters who are going to face off and they're going to meet in this epic landscape, then all right, we're doing an environment piece, but we have to include characters, right? If it's established the kind of shape, language, and color mood of this area of the game, well, then putting people in that might not be appropriate unless we know that those people will always be part of that environment. Like if you were going to do a busy marketplace, the environment concept likely should have people in it because they'll be part of that environment basically the whole time, unless it's a weird, empty marketplace for whatever reason. So yeah, I think it's really just about not labeling things and just kind of assessing, what is the goal of the task at hand. Have I seen Cabin in the Woods? Giant old ones bursting from the ground always stuck with me. Yeah, that's a cool movie. The sort of horror comedy genre is a really fun one and a tricky one, I would say, to get right, but I think they did a good job with that one. There was also one, what was it called, like Dead Snow or something like that, where it was some like Nazi zombies in the Antarctic coming back to life. That was like a horror comedy. I think that was what it was called. I like that one too. And of course, Army of Darkness is a classic, but that's one of my favorite movies of all time. Okay, so let's see. Do we want to do more here? Do we like what we've got? Can we like combo some of these things together? This is where we start to maybe combine some of these things. this Stonehenge throne thing is pretty cool, and the tentacles out of the sky thing's pretty cool too. But I also liked the concept of some of these tentacles sort of coming out of the ground. It feels really creepy. Let's do this. Let's take number 3. Let's move him down here. Oops, actually, we don't need this line here. Oh, where's the line? There we go. Let's take this one here, and let's flip it too to give ourselves... Well, maybe not, because I'm going to combo some of this stuff, I think. Let's maximize our canvas. And... maybe we'll have some tentacles kind of below here. We'll have it'll be very like heavy fog, I think. We'll do kind of like in the movie Alien, where they're in the egg chamber. You know, it's this really heavy kind of ground fog going on. So maybe we'll put some fog down there, but then you'll see masses of tentacles kind of popping up through the ground fog. Okay, we added a little tentacle aspect there. You know, I'm thinking this might make it just a bit too adversarial. I think I want it to be more creepy. I don't want it to be an action scene necessarily. So let's keep the throne, but let's lose the foreground character. Sorry for anybody who was really excited about the foreground character. And I like these floating obelisks. They're cool, and they kind of fit with the Stonehenge vibe going on, so maybe we can integrate some of those still in here. Like sentinels kind of guarding this place. I like that vibe going on. But we'll keep them kind of out of the center here for our tentacle friend from the sky, so he can kind of have his space. Yeah, and I think we could play around with some of these weird tentacle trees still in the background. I think that's a kind of a cool element here. So we'll throw a few of those in. Maybe there's a couple really distant ones here we'll barely be able to see. And let's put one here in the foreground. Or not the foreground, but like kind of the mid-ground area. And I'm not sure that I'm like super thrilled with the placement of these floating platforms yet. I think we're going to have to evaluate that when we start putting in some of the values. So the light and dark shapes. I'm looking at my themes up here, seeing how we're doing with this here. So I think that these things probably still want those eyeballs going on. Dead Snow? Okay, I was right about the name. Glad I remembered that. What if the guy I'm intending in the foreground was a statue? That way he was a permanent part of the environment. Would also be cool. Okay, like a foreground statue. Interesting. Trying to think how to integrate that. Let's see. We've got anti-gravity going on for sure. I think we have an obelisk kind of component going on. Yeah, maybe I did like the statues we had here. Oh, you know, I liked this planet thing we had back here too. Maybe maybe we do the planet thing. This might be too much, but let's put it in and just we'll see how that goes. Maybe we'll include it, maybe we won't. But let's put that in there. And maybe the statues are. I want them to compete with this character, but I think what we'll do for the actual like creature on the throne here is I think we'll make them a very distinct color, right? So they'll be very different and obvious compared to the more kind of gray statue things on the sides here. Yeah. So we'll put some Cthulhu-y statues on the sides. Like this. Have them kind of facing outward so they feel like they're also kind of like protectors of this throne area here. Maybe they come to life. Maybe we could even imply that. Maybe there's cracks going through the statue and there's a glow coming out of the cracks. Maybe their eyes are sort of glowing like they're becoming sentient, ready to protect their queen or king or whoever this is. We don't really know. It's going to be an it, I suppose. All right, I think we got a good amount of stuff to work with there. You know, these tombstone shapes, I think, could be something that just has a little bit of a include here, like little accents along the sides. That's number 4. Let's take this and flip it and see how it feels the other way around. Okay, I think I want to adjust that shape a bit there. And again, when we put the values in here, we're gonna have a clear sense of how we're gonna want to adjust this. But this is just giving us an initial thought. And we may end up putting something in the foreground here. You know, I just we'll see. This is not intended to be you know, we don't want our sketch to feel like it's a burden on us. You know, we want to kind of just flow with it here. So I think that the composition is feeling pretty good, flipped horizontally as well. Let's check it vertically. Vertically flipping is cool because what it does is it abstracts everything, and so you're looking at purely just graphic shapes and not giving any mental additional mental weight to any particular elements because of its recognizable subject matter or your preconceived notions of what it should be. Yeah, I like the clustering of detail here too. Okay, so 5, we just adjusted a bit. And funny enough, if we look at these, we could technically make all of these look pretty cool, right? Like they all have potential, but you know, we're doing one image, so we're just picking our favorite things and putting them together, because why not? Thanks, Penny. I'm glad you are having confidence. I will be more excited when I start to see it come to life here. But I like the ideas we have. I think the ideas are cool. I think the rough composition is definitely looking neat here. So let's put these off to the side and pop it into a new image here, and we'll start to explore the lighting in the scene. So here I've just got my sketch now scaled to full size, and I set it to multiply, and we're going to just start to mess with some values here underneath. And when you're doing this step here, you want to be thinking again about those major different planes in the image, those depth planes, and using value as a way to help us feel those changes in depth. And I have my navigator up here nearby. So this is a small version of my image, and I'm looking at the overall value choices happening. And I think that it's probably pretty clear that we're going to have light coming from this opening here. I think that's going to be a pretty obvious situation. So we'll plan for that, and then we'll have heavy atmosphere in the scene, so there'll be some lighter values at the horizon line here in the distance, and then some thickness coming forward from there. This whole situation here is going to be darker, so let's lasso some of this out. Try to think from big to small when you're doing this. If we went in here and we started like painting the eyes of the character on the throne right now, it'd be a complete disaster. So try to think big to small when you're doing this. And so I think what's becoming obvious to me is that this central podium here is going to be closer to us than these sides here, right? So this is going to be, going to knock that back there. See, I'm just establishing the overlap in the scene, and also we're now able to see these shapes clearer than we could before in the sketch, so we're able to evaluate the composition on a new level. I think it's becoming clear that we're going to want one of those tentacle things coming out there. Maybe another one spiraling up a little bit here. Knock that back. The eye is very perceptive to value change, so a little goes a long way. If you think about looking off in the distance outside, how much detail you can see of those distant elements, right? You can actually make out quite a bit, and they're all very low contrast. So these are those floating obelisk elements I was wanting to have in here. Okay, just looking at our composition here. And there's light going to be hitting the top of this podium here. So let's just real quickly lasso a few spots as a initial indicator of that happening. Since our light source is back here in the sky, we can say that there might be, might be some vignetting happening in the image in the front here in the foreground. But again, I'm going to have some layers of fog here too, or mist at the ground level, so that'll lighten things up there. What'll be nice about that is that these platforms underneath will be dark, and then they'll be against a lighter mist below, so we'll have good value counter change there. It's something that we're really striving for here, is value counter change. I'm going to merge this with our sketch now, so we don't really need to have that. You know, we've got everything blocked in. I'm going to play with levels here and just try and get a slightly more complete sense of the value spectrum here. Let's add in the thick layer of mist we wanted to try and do here. Maybe it's even kind of spiraling up around this thing. That's details we can get into later. For now, we're just trying to establish that there is this lighter range of values happening at the base. And of course, those cloud forms will all be catching light around this opening here. So. So, here I'm just adjusting values, and I'm watching very carefully this navigator here to see if the lighting is feeling like I want. The details, I mean, that's the fun part, right? Like where we can kind of noodle in and we know the position of everything, the shape language is all there. That's where we can just have fun. But right now, we have to be thinking a bit more architecturally about things. The goal is that if we get this stuff right, then there won't be a lot of fiddling at the later stages. Because if you have big compositional problems, big lighting problems, those are not things you want to be solving later in the process. It's a recipe for disaster. Have the front of this element catch some more light here. Pop that a bit further into the distance. Get this cloud cover feeling a little bit more menacing and dark. There's this really interesting subtle form that's happened here that I'm liking, so let's riff off that. All right, that sounds good. Thanks for dropping by, Natasha. Kind of want the edge of this to catch the light. So, at this point, we have definitely a sense of foreground, midground, and background, right? So now we're establishing all of these planes that are in between those. So our eye is going to flow all the way through the image, and that just happens as we're adding more detail, right? And you may be wondering, when am I going to add color? Well, we'll add color once we have our values feeling pretty good. But I don't want to do that yet. Clean that shape up there. And if you guys want to do this lasso painting stuff, just remember to use Control H to hide the selection, so that way you can see what you're painting. You don't have to worry about the crawling ants getting in your way. I mean, sometimes I leave them on if I can still see what I'm doing clearly, but oftentimes you can't, so. And what you're going to notice here is that this piece will start going from a sketch to feeling more like a painting, right? So we're slowly eliminating all those lines. We're getting more tonal choices in. And that's exactly what we want to have happening. Also, just be careful about what values you're grabbing, because the ones that are in the piece right now were established with the global lighting in mind, right? I mean, we really had those macro choices at the forefront of our mind when we were putting those in. So it's good to keep those. You know, if we add a new value, it should be close to what's already there, right? If we add this dark value to this area over here, well, that doesn't make sense in our overall composition. I mean, it could be that it's something close to the camera, right? If we do that, it feels like it's much closer to us all of a sudden, right? It feels like it might be on the same plane as this here. So that's why we do this macro value stuff first. So that way, now that we're getting in here and we're doing details, we can sample from values that are nearby, and we don't have to worry about it living in some incorrect layer of depth in the image. But oh man, do I want to get in here and do these the detail and the focal point so bad. That'll be a lot of fun. But we got to save the dessert for toward the end, I think. But doing these organic forms is actually pretty fun and relaxing too. You know, just kind of getting in here and expressing all these weird little shapes. And have some textured brushes nearby, and it just makes your life a little bit easier to achieve some of that gritty realism. You know, I've got just a small selection. For my students, you'll recognize the tool presets and some of the brush presets here, but you'll know that this is just a small set of the ones that I normally am using. And that's because there's a lot in there, and I don't really need many. The tool presets are the brushes I use most often, and then for an environment like this, we're just bringing in a few extra ones here. The only extra one I have right now that you may not have seen in my previous set is this one I just created recently called Clouds Nebula, which I did with this particular piece in mind because I know we're going to have a cosmic aspect to this, and so we'll be able to bring in some of this stuff later. You'll see it in action later. It'll be cool. But yeah, we got to make sure that we're thinking about the important stuff right now. Which is the overall big shapes. See, grabbing from the wrong area is not good. That's a really bad tangent there. Let's get rid of that. And we have omnidirectional light from the sky here, so we need to be thinking at some point about some cast shadows happening too, right? Like the pillars here kind of casting some shadows outward. This will be interesting because the front faces of these, this will end up working in our favor because the front faces of these statues that are facing outward will be dark because they're going to be backlit, and that way the glowing eyes and that idea we have for them sort of coming to life will be really, really obvious on the dark side of the statue. So that ends up just kind of working out for us. And then these back here are on the far side of the that one is anyway. I think this one is too here. Is this in the front or in the back? I think that one's in the back. So let's do this. We'll indicate some of this light hitting the inside of that one there. Do we put another one in here, maybe? Do we like that? Let's see. No, I think that's just too busy. Let's keep it to those. Yeah, I'm just using my smudge brush to push and pull some things around, get rid of some of these lines, and help my eye see just the sort of tones happening. My goal is to really try to work the whole image up at once, so we don't have any areas that feel incomplete or disjointed with the other parts. So that is going to be what I will do. But super fine details like some of the stuff in the center here, I think we can wait on that for a bit. I have the sneaking suspicion we're going to end up adding some darker floating pieces up here in the foreground like this. I think that'll just look really cool. But I'm going to wait to do that because it just kind of interferes with painting the rest of this. But just, let's put it on a new layer. How about that? How about that? We'll use this fancy feature in Photoshop called Layers. You guys may have heard of it. Put a couple here. Well, I think that's good for now. Might mess with that a bit. Might be too busy, but those are elements that we can utilize if we need to compositionally. size is our canvas here? Okay, cool. We're working at 4K, so that's a good thing. You wish you'd known about the Control H thing before? Yeah, it's a handy one for sure. Glad you're thinking it looks good, or at least ominous. That's a good sign, right? That's definitely the vibe we're going for here. Let's see. One moment here. I have to make sure I stay organized here. This is living in its own document. I actually want this to be, whoops. I want this to be in this document. We're going to close this one. Yeah, there we go. Cool. Let's see. Status Active says, I started seeing concept artists like Machiev Kushara using Blender and other 3D software to create a base for a concept and adding 2D aspects in Photoshop later. Is 3D the future of concept art? Well, I mean, it certainly affects the pipeline for concept art, and if you're a person who is so inclined to learn 3D, then you can incorporate that. I know 3D, and I could do that, but I am careful about when I integrate it, because 3D is one of those things that can be an involved process. It doesn't have to be, but I find a lot of times it's easier to just paint something. But there are certain more technical things that can be good in 3D. If you have some very precise layouts that you need to have created, such as a cityscape where all the buildings are very gridded out, and you don't want to have to draw all that out, then making some simple boxes in 3D and rendering that and then painting on top of the boxes, that's a great use of 3D. But like for example with this scene here, these statues, you know, like it really isn't going to do any good for me to go into like ZBrush and sculpt the statue and render it and then integrate it into the scene. Like I can imply everything we need to with just painting in Photoshop. So it's about kind of carefully evaluating where to spend your time and how long certain things might take you. And certain people are faster at things in 3D than other people. Some people are really good at doing hard surface stuff in 3D. Some people are really fast at doing organic stuff. So it is definitely part of the pipeline. And people use it all the time, but I think you just have to consider carefully, is it actually benefiting you or not? Or is it just getting you mired in a more complex process than what's needed? So just consider it in that through that lens. And in fact, we're going to make use of one of my tricks here, which is having a light background behind what we're doing, so that way we can use the eraser tool to lighten things versus switching the color of our brush. You were surprised, yeah. Status Active says, I'm simply just a 3D modeling student, but I was surprised to see famous concept artists using 3D for their work, but it seems like kit bashing is used a lot, so not much modeling involved. Yes, I would say that the concept artists who are integrating 3D into their work aren't necessarily getting too mired in the modeling process, right? They're not going through and being careful about topology and quad flow, and they're certainly not doing any sub-D modeling necessarily, right? If they integrate a more complex 3D model into their concept work, it's likely because it's been handed to them from a modeling part of the team to say, hey, we've already got this shape, can you tweak it, mess with it, paint on top of it? That would be a case where you'd have a more robust 3D model integrated into your workflow. But if it's a concept artist who is doing it themselves, they're likely going to avoid getting too lost in the modeling process, the complexities of 3D modeling, and stick to more simple primitives. They're worried more about perspective, simplifying perspective issues for themselves, and also sometimes dealing with lighting. So if they want to have some simple light setup in the scene or have a sense for how shadows are going to be structured, you can use 3D for that as well. I'm going to leave this ring in here for now, because I think there could still be something interesting about that, but I'm not certain yet how I want to use that. Oh crap, we're way over time. Oh my gosh, guys. I was not watching the clock. This time just disappears so fast. It's crazy. Shoot. Well, honestly, I think we actually got a lot established here. Like, I think we have a general idea of where we're headed with this. We have some themes, we have some shapes, we have some narrative going on. We're starting to get lighting figured out. Now we're getting into some of the details, right? And I'm going to focus on, I think, some of the center area next time, and we'll start doing some of the statues, and of course this creature in the middle will be a lot of fun to do. It could be that they end up kind of cascading over the platform, and who knows, right? We could definitely have some fun with that. But I think we'll have to end there. I don't want to accidentally squeeze into other streamers' time. I don't think Simon starts until later, but I don't want to risk it. I'm not exactly certain when he starts. But anyway, I'm really excited with where this is going to go. I'm very pleased with how far we got. Even though we went a bit over, I think it's in a good place for next stream. So I hope you guys will stay tuned for that. I'll be back here next week, same time, and we will continue with this Lovecraft landscape. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel if you're watching this later on YouTube. It really does help us a lot. It's free content for you guys. So, leaving that stuff there, it helps us with the channel and gets it in front of more people. It is it's really a huge thing for us. So please do that. Much appreciated. And thank you to everybody who joined me in the channel here. Before I leave, let me just take a quick look and see if there's any last questions. Status Actor says, but then I'm confused with Vitaly Bulgarov, who does both concept and production, and his 3D models also become production models like the skeleton frame and Ghost in the Shell. He's very impressive. Yes. There are always exceptions, right? Like, what we talk about here is the sort of general situation that happens, the more standard workflow. But all the time you're going to see exceptions happen where you have a concept artist who has taken their 3D model really, really far, and then it ends up being usable, right? That could be something. And I may be wrong in saying this because I'm not on these projects, but just as a casual observer, I would say Vitaly's role on some of the projects is a little bit unique. He's he is at the head of development on those projects, and I think he can carve his own role in a very unique way, which is not maybe a standard way of doing things. So, yeah, I would say that that's not a typical situation, but you have to be ready for anything, right? Like, be organic in how you approach it. It's just about assessing what makes sense for the resources and the team that you have available to you, and doing the best with what you've got. So, okay, guys, I'm gonna head out here, buddy, and thanks for tuning in, and I'll hopefully see you next time. Take care.